I want to invite your attention to the book of Psalm, the 16th chapter. Psalm 16, you'll find these words, "Keep me safe, O God, for I have come to you for refuge. I said to the Lord, you are my master. Every good thing I have comes from you. The godly people in the land are my true heroes. I take pleasure in them. Trouble multiply for those who chase after other gods. I will not take part in their sacrifices of blood or even speak the name of their gods. Lord, you alone are my inheritance, my cup of blessing. You guard all that is mine. The land you have given me is a pleasant land. What a wonderful inheritance. I will bless the Lord who guides me even at night. My heart instructs me. I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. No wonder my heart is glad and I rejoice. My body rests in safety, for you will not leave my soul among the dead or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasure of living with you forever." And I won't be before you long, but won't you help me title this sermon? Look at your neighbor and say, "Neighbor, it's just one thing. It's not everything." That's what I want to talk about. It's just one thing. It's not everything. You like the saying, if it ain't one thing, it's another. And the truth of the matter is, we as people tend to focus on what's not right or what we ain't feeling, and we make it as though that's everything. Go through a difficult season or go through a moment where it don't go your way. Have a fight with the wrong person. Have a moment where it does not seem to be working out. Have a moment where things seem difficult. Have a moment of disappointment, a moment of hurt, a moment of heartache. And our human nature tends to make that moment that we're going through the sum total of the sum total. I said the sum total. The sum total of our entire moment. We tend to make that thing everything in that moment. You wonder where this is coming from. I can't believe I'm about to talk about this show because I have avoided this show for the entire time it was on the air. And I avoided it because I don't like shows that try to make you feel a certain way. And I will admit, looking back on it, my wife and her crew, including one of the deaconesses of this church, love the show This Is Us. I don't like it. My daughter just yelled out, "I like it." And if I'll be honest, I think I do like it now, but I don't want to admit I like it because I spent so much time not liking it that I'm like, I have to hold true to who I am. This ain't for me. And I ain't a big fan of shows that pull at your heartstrings. Give me The Godfather. Give me Don Corleone. Shoot him on the way to buy oranges. I ain't crying. You know, I ain't cry when they had to kill Fredo. I was good when they killed Fredo. You know, Al Pacino is cool with me. You know, the Scarface ain't never made me cry. Are you with me? Juice is probably the closest I got to crying. When Tupac killed the bull, that's probably the closest I got to crying. When Mufasa died in The Lion King. When Rudy gets on the team. When Forrest has to raise his baby boy. That's the closest I'm going to get. I ain't trying to do it every Tuesday at 8 o'clock, but 10 o'clock, whatever time. That's too late to be crying. It's time for bed. Going to sleep dreaming about This Is Us. But anywho, in this past week's episode, I must admit, there was some true theology being preached in the moment. If you didn't see it, too bad, because I'm about to spoil it. Rebecca dies. The mother of the show is, the entire show is helping you see Rebecca's death. And they do it in a beautiful way. Rebecca's on this train, and each train is a period of her life, and each train car, she interacts with her children. But one of the things that I loved about the show, the entire show is about Rebecca dying. The whole hour is about Rebecca dying. But in the midst of the whole time that Rebecca's dying, there are beautiful things that are still happening in the midst of Rebecca's dying. While Rebecca's dying, her grandbaby gets to tell her daddy that she's having her first baby. While Rebecca's dying, there's another boy who is in a car accident, and this accident, they're afraid that he's going to die, that this kid is going to die. And that accident, that experience allows him to meet up with Jack. Jack was Rebecca's husband, who also died. On that day, Jack made it a statement that became the motto for that family forever. And that little boy that was about to die in the car accident on the same night that Rebecca's husband dies, that little boy grows up to get a cure for Alzheimer's. At the same time that Rebecca is dying, her adopted son Randall is having the most amazing career in his life. At the same time that Rebecca is dying, the son, who's an actor, whose name I don't know, he's been a fool most of the show, but now he's starting to get it together. Kevin. The only Kevin I care about was left home twice. Home Alone. Kevin McAllister. That didn't make me cry. Rebecca's dying all throughout the show, but what is beautiful is that as Rebecca is dying, there are beautiful things that are happening in the midst of what this family is going through. This family has to bury their mother, but they also get to welcome a new child. This family has to bury their mother, but they also get to live in a season of success. This family has to bury their mother, but they also remarry after a hard divorce. You're wondering, where am I going with this? I submit to you that if you ever find the space in life where in the midst of the worst thing going on, there is still something to be grateful for. As a matter of fact, every now and then when you find yourself going through hard times, every now and then when you find yourself going through disappointment, you need to take a moment to still yourself. What do I mean by that? You know, one of the things I love about David is pretty good all throughout the psalm, all throughout what David writes. David's pretty good at kind of putting things in perspective. He has these moments where he falls out. You know, his mentor tries to kill him. His children are trying to kill him at times. Sometimes he's on the run. Sometimes his sin is catching up to him. Sometimes his bad decisions are causing situations in his life. But every now and then, David will take a moment and pen a psalm, and it blows my mind how David is often good at finding a yet or a still. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that? Read some of the Psalms and you'll see David going through moments of depression and going through moments of hurt and going through moments where he's afraid. And then somewhere in there, he's going to write, yet. Yet will my soul be happy. Yet will I trust the Lord. Yet will I get to this new place. Here in this text, he doesn't find a yet, but he finds a still. And every now and then I'm submit to you that you have to get to the place in your life, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much disappointment you have, no matter what you're going through, no matter your hurt, no matter your heartache, no matter your pain, every now and then you need to still yourself. Let me push it. The first thing that comes up for me in this text is this: there's still good things. You know, sometimes, again, when we go through, we make it out like that is the sum total of everything that's going on in our life. You go through a rough season, you go through a rough patch, and you forget that there are still good things. There are still good things to attain. There are still good things to go after. There are still good things to drive you. It's in the text. Verse 2 says, I said to the Lord, you are my master. Every good thing I have comes from you. Verse 6 says, the land you have given me is a pleasant land. What a wonderful inheritance. What David is saying is, listen, even though I might be going through some stuff, even though I might not like what's on the resume, even though I might not like what's on the table right now, I still have to recognize that every good thing I have comes from you. I still have to recognize that every good thing going on in my life is because of you. I may not like where I'm at right now. I may not like what it feels like right now, but here's the truth. When I think about my life and I think about how you've blessed me, how you've kept me, when I think about the possessions you've allowed me to have in spite of me, when I think about the fact that I got a place to lay my head tonight, when I think about the fact that I got food on my table tonight, when I think about the fact that I got people in relationship, when I think about the fact that I ain't out here messed up, when I think about the fact that I still have good health, that I still have my right mind, when I think about that, it makes me realize that those things came from you and you alone. And because those came from you, I can thank God for you. I can thank God. I mean, at the end of the day, I might be going through, I might have some issues, I might not like what you are allowing in my life right now, but it does not compare to the things you have already done, to the things you keep giving me, to the way in which you keep blessing me. Do I have anybody who's grateful this morning? Anybody who can say, it may not be Gucci, but I got it on. It may not be a Lexus, but I got here today. It may not be a six-figure salary, but it fed me last night. It may not be, every bill might not be paid, but they ain't come take nothing yet. When I think about it, God, it's only because of you, your goodness, and your mercy in my life. I'm going to thank you because I still got some good things happening in my life. I can take what's wrong. I can take what's messed up. Why? Because you are still good. You are still on the throne. And every time I turn around, you keep on blessing me over and over and over and over again. How can I not thank you for being God all by yourself? You gave me the land. You gave me all this. And since you gave it to me, I got to remind myself that when you give me something I don't like, when you give me something I ain't feeling, when you give me something that stretches me, I have to remind myself of every good thing you have ever done in my life. How in the world can I start fronting on you now? How in the world can I start switching up on you now? There's still good things. But then not only that, I really want to push it because you know what the problem is, Celinda. You know what most of us has trouble with? We go through a season of disappointment, heartache, pain. Most of us can point to a person who caused it. Most of us can point to a person who isn't living up to their responsibilities. A person who didn't keep the promise. A person who took advantage of you. A person who hurt you. A person who didn't follow through on what they said. Might have been a parent who promised to love you and promised to do for you, but we can't find you when it's time to act on that. It might have been a spouse who said, "Till death do us part," and then parted soon as y'all disagreed with each other. It might have been a family member who said they're going to stand in the gap for some stuff. And then when it was needed, they weren't there. It may have been a friend who betrayed you by breaking your confidence. Most of us can point to a person. But the problem is that many of us will then allow that person to become the definition of other people in our lives. What do I mean by that? This is the easy one. He was a bad husband, and he was a dog. So now we all got to be dogs. She was a liar. So now I ain't giving my heart to nobody else. My friends turned their back on me. So I ain't having no more friends. It's just me, myself, and I. Somebody let you down, so you came up with this little cute saying, "It's just me and Jesus." Most folk that say it's just me and Jesus, hang with them long enough, they a little crazy. If the only person you ever talk to or ever hear is Jesus, Jesus himself is like, "Yo, can you go get a friend?" At the end of the day, we tend to make our experience with people equal everybody. But I want to submit to you, there's still good people. Don't cancel people out because of what somebody has done wrong in your life. Don't live a life of seclusion because of what somebody has done wrong with you. It's in the text. It's verse 3 says, "The godly people in the land are my true heroes. I take pleasure in them. Trouble multiply for those who chase after other gods. I will not take part in their sacrifices of blood or even speak the name of their gods." Verse 3 says, "The godly people in the land are my true heroes." In other words, I'm going to focus on people who are choosing God's way. I'm going to focus on people who are trying to do it God's way. I'm not going to spend time dealing with folk who are outside of God's will. And I'm not going to spend time trying to hold people accountable to things that they really don't have the strength to live up to. Or I'm trying to help somebody right there. Part of the issue is not even about what the person did to you. It's because of the position that you've put them in when they did not have the strength to be in that position. Sometimes it is you and your choices. You're holding people accountable to a level that they can't reach without God, which means it's your fault for trying to put them in a position that God is supposed to be in. At the end of the day, now here's where I want to push it. I don't want us to think that means that I only hang out with godly people. That means that I can't have other people in my life. But what it does mean is that I need to get to a space where I don't expect anybody to fill my needs except for God and God alone. I don't expect anybody to be in the space of God. The closest relationship I'm going to have is the one with God. And here's the deal. I'm not going to let people who did not live up to their potential, people who did not live up to their responsibilities. I'm not going to let them become the definition for everybody, because there are still good people. Can I really push it? If I preached it this way, you would love it. At the end of the day, part of what we have to make sure we don't do is do the same thing that we get mad at the media for doing. The media will tend to group people into the story that they want it to be. Let me push it. The media will make you think that there are more black men in prison, when in fact there are more young men between the ages of 18 to 24 on a college campus than there are in a prison. The media will make you think that we live in poverty, that black people are constantly in poverty, but the truth of the matter is there are more. In fact, most black people enjoy a middle class lifestyle, and that there is a number of black people who are millionaires, and that's not even including black people on the continent of Africa. What am I trying to push it to? At the end of the day, the media will at times take the negative about people and the negative about stuff and make you and apply it to everybody. But the media isn't the only one that does that. We tend to do it. We tend to make it out that because somebody betrayed our trust, that we can never trust again. We tend to make it out that because somebody didn't live up to their responsibilities, then nobody else will live up to their responsibilities. There are still good people in this world. There are still people who are trying to do it God's way. There are still people who want to step in the lives of young children. There are still people, can I really push it? I got a black man named Iron who's every day standing in the school district teaching black kids how to be better. I got a black woman named Olivia who every day fights for environmental justice. I got a woman named Leslie who raises children who she did not produce on her own. I got somebody named Elizabeth who's right now going to get some nursing, getting her nursing degree. I got people like Zandy who have stepped in the lives of other children. I got folk like Renisha who loves people besides their own. I got folk like Taliba who's willing to bless other people. Can I really go there? I got a deacon named Leon Lewis who ain't never pastored anybody in his life, but pastored this entire church for over 5 years. I got people like Vern Ingram who will go in his pocket and bless other children. I got some folk up in here who are still good people. Can I really go there on you? I got people who's got a past, who's willing to tell somebody like Regina, don't let my past define me, and you can be who God has called you to be. I got people like Deaconess Lindsay who lost her husband but still helping people have better marriages. I got people who are willing to step in and fill the gap. I got a Reverend English who uses her wisdom to help young girls be better. Don't ever tell me that there ain't good people. I got a Robert Morris who feeds people when they're hungry. I got a Joe Parker who shows up every day and cleans these streets. I got good people. Don't tell me that there's nothing but deadbeat dads when I look at Terrell Bullock. Don't tell me that there's nothing but deadbeat dads when I look at Leon Lewis. Don't tell me that there's nothing but horrible mothers when I look at Katina Williams. Don't tell me that there aren't good people. Can I really go there? Don't tell me black boys ain't doing nothing when I got a Damir Blakeney who walked across with his degree. Don't tell me that black girls can't do nothing but be lay on their back when I got a Tajani Bullock with her master's degree. Don't tell me that black kids can't make it when I got a Dominique Mateo. Don't tell me people ain't committed when every Sunday morning for the last 6 years, Simeon Moore has been making this microphone work. Don't tell me that single mothers can't pull it off. When I watch my wife put check mark next to impossible every day of her life, don't tell me. Still good people. But here's the deal. Because every sermon has some work for you to do. The problem is, you like everybody I shouted out, and that made you feel good. But we tend to put too much focus on the ones who don't than the ones who do. And we tend to try to make people be what they're supposed to be. And we tend to get angry when they don't be who they're supposed to be. And so then we do things like trying to get revenge on them for not being who they're supposed to be. Think of how many relationships you still mad at that person for what they did. You still destroy their character any chance you get. You still trying to hurt them. And when you look at verse 4 ought to help you get away from it. Because verse 4 says, troubles multiply for those who chase after other gods. I will not take part in their sacrifices of blood or even speak the name of their gods. In other words, when people choose something other than God's will, the text seems to suggest that God will handle the revenge. The text seems to suggest that God will deal with people who have chosen other gods in their life. People, remember, anything that is outside of God's will, anything that is outside of God's calling, anything that calls you away from who God is calling you to be is the same as choosing another God. The text says that we don't have to focus in, or we don't have to deal with, or we don't have to worry about people who are choosing other gods, because trouble will come into their lives however God defines it, which means you don't need to even convince yourself. You don't even need to waste your brain power. You don't even need to waste your thoughts on somebody who's living outside of God's will, somebody who's done you wrong, somebody who's messed you up, somebody who didn't do their part. Stop wasting your time allowing people to live rent-free in your head. Stop allowing yourself. You have no idea how the stress and anxiety that you are walking around with creates health issues in your own life. And here they are walking around not even thinking about you. Here they are walking around doing their own thing. I need some folk who understand what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a verse 3 approach. I'm going to choose to be around some other godly folk. I'm going to let them be my heroes. I'm going to celebrate people who's doing God's will, God's way. I'm going to choose to honor people who are doing God's will, God's way, and those who are not doing God's will, God's way. Look, I ain't got to try to get you there. I ain't got to try to be mad at you. I ain't got to try to get revenge. You go on and do what you're going to do. Here's what I promise you. What you put out, you will get back. Here's what I promise you. When you don't do it God's way, God will show you that he's bigger than you. God will show you that he's bigger than that. At the end of the day, I need some folk who understand that there are still good people in spite of bad people, in spite of wrong people. So instead of focusing on people who ain't filling my life, on people who pulling me down, on people who's consuming my mind, on people who's doing nothing but bringing stress into my life, I ain't even going to have room for you. I ain't letting you in. Stop allowing people who are insignificant to your growth to be in your life. Stop allowing people who are insignificant to your development to have a voice in your life. Stop allowing people who are insignificant to your future allowing you to keep you down. Is there anybody here that knows there are still good people, and there are people who pray for me? There are people who are pulling for me. There are people who are pushing me. There are people who woke up and prayed for me this morning. Grandma said it this way: somebody prayed for me, had me on their mind, took the time and prayed for me. I'm going to focus on godly people. There's still good things. There's still good people. But there's one last thing, and I'm going to get up out of here. There's still a good future. It's in the text. Notice it. Verse 9 says, no wonder my heart is glad, and I rejoice. My body rests in safety. For you will not leave my soul among the dead or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasure of living with you forever. I know. That didn't do it for you. But literally what the text is saying is that even when there's hurt, even when there's disappointment, even when there's heartache, even when there's pain, even when there's something going on, that one thing is not everything. And the real shout is, because that one thing is not everything, it will not cancel out what God has for me. I'm going to say it again. Even though there may be heartache, even though there may be pain, even though there may be hurt, even though there may be drama, even though people may have walked out on me, even though people may not have lived up to it, the shout in the text is this: that is just one thing amongst all of the amazing things God is doing in my life. And since that one thing is not everything, it means my future is not canceled out. You're wondering, where is future in the text? My heart is glad, my body rests in safety, for you will not leave my soul among the dead. You will not leave me in this horrible place. You will not leave me in this sick situation. You will not leave me in this dead situation. You will not leave me in this depressed situation. You will not allow me to rot in the grave. You will not allow this to decay in my life. You will not allow this to take me out. You will show me the way of life, which means you're even going to use this horrible moment to show me that you're getting glory out of it. You're going to use this horrible moment to show me that I can be better through it. You're going to use this horrible moment to show me that I can live a better life, granting me the joy of your presence. You'll never leave me nor forsake me, even in this dark moment, even in this heavy moment. You are right here with me. You are right here beside me. You're not leaving me on my own. You're in the midst of this mess with me. Your pleasure, I will have pleasure with living with you forever, which means you ain't going nowhere, which means even the next time something comes up, I can remind myself that you're still right here with me. Well, I know what the problem is. Y'all are church folk and y'all need to get to the cross. Well, let me get you to the cross, because I need you to realize that all I'm trying to argue is that your darkest, deepest, saddest, hardest moment does not equal your entire future. And not only does it not equal your entire future, that God can and is doing amazing things in the midst of your darkest, saddest, hardest moment. How do I know? Because the darkest, saddest moment I've ever read about was the moment that Jesus was nailed to a cross for your sin and for mine. That him who did no wrong was nailed to an old rugged cross. That the only person who never had sin was nailed to a cross. Not only was he nailed to a cross, but he was beaten half to death, and he was bruised, and he was placed in the darkest of moments. It was the hardest moment you could ever read about. Whatever it is that you are going through is nothing compared to what he went through. He was beaten half to death, and he was nailed to an old rugged cross, and he was nailed there with not even having a reason to be there. As a matter of fact, he was only there because of you. that was the deepest, darkest moment. It was so deep and so dark that darkness covered the entire earth. And it was so deep and so dark that the devil swore they had won the war, that the devil swore that he had won. It was so deep and so dark that they thought there was no hope for humanity. It was so deep and so dark that they thought there would never be another opportunity. But in the midst of the darkness, in the midst of the mess, in the midst of the drama, he went in a tomb. And even though there was darkness, and even though there was hurt, and even though there was heartache, and even though there was pain, somehow early Sunday morning, he got up with all power in his hands. Well, you're wondering, what does that have to do with everything I preached? Well, that darkest, hardest, deepest moment created the most beautiful moment in existence for humanity. What is the most beautiful moment? Because of that deep, dark, horrible moment, each and every last one of us has an opportunity to walk with our heads up. Because of that deep, dark moment, each and every last one of us has the opportunity to choose him to be Lord over our lives. If he'd have never went to a cross, I never would have been saved. If he'd have never went to a cross, I never would have been able to live to my potential. If he'd have never went to a cross, I'd have never had an opportunity for brand new mercy. You ain't shouting as good as I'm preaching. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to argue is that the deepest, darkest moment on earth is also an opportunity to be the most beautiful moment in your life. And here is the real shout: because he is an amazing God, that opportunity exists in more than just the saving moment. You got an opportunity in the midst of burying family to thank God that you still have an opportunity to have joy. You got an opportunity in the midst of losing a job to thank God that he still supplies all your needs. You got an opportunity in the midst of losing loved ones to thank God that there's some other folk who will come around you and wrap you in their love. You've got an opportunity in the midst of people failing on their responsibilities to see that God is able to step in and fill your needs even though they have failed at it. Is there anybody here who can get to this place? I dare you to look over your life. I dare you to think about whatever that thing is, and I dare you to declare it's one thing, but it's not everything. It's one thing, but it's not everything. Is there anybody that has this testimony? Yes, I'm going through, but I still have joy. Yes, I'm going through, but I still have peace. Yes, I'm going through, but I still have my right mind. Yes, I'm going through, but I still have opportunities. I may not know what tomorrow holds, but I know who holds tomorrow. Is there anybody here who can put it this way? I've had some good days. I've had some weary days. I've had some lonely nights. But when I look around and think things over, all of my good days outweigh my bad days, so I won't complain. Is there anybody that can put it this way? I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. I've learned to depend upon his word. Well, maybe you got to put it this way. Though the storms keep on raging in my life, and sometimes it's hard to tell the night from day, still that hope that lies within, it reassures as I keep my eyes upon the distant shore. I know he'll lead me safely to that blessed place he has prepared. But if the storm don't cease, and if the winds keep on blowing, my soul has been anchored in the Lord? Is there anybody here that knows God is a good God? God is a great God. Is there anybody here that knows that in the midst of my despair, God continues to pick me up? God continues to lift my soul. God continues to make me whole. I'm trying to leave y'all alone. I'm trying to take my seat, but in the midst of what's wrong, when I think of the goodness of Jesus and all he's done for me, my soul, my soul, my soul, my soul cries hallelujah. I don't know about you, but I dare you to think of how he's still good. I dare you to think of how he's still doing great things. I dare you to think of how he's still opening doors. I dare you to think of how he's still making ways. I dare you to think of how he's still keeping you. I dare you to think of how he's still blessing you. I dare you to think on the goodness of Jesus.